Broken to Brave, episode 17, number 19, Got Therapy.
I started having flashbacks, upsetting glimpses of something I couldn't get a handle on. There are a lot of traumas that I've endured in my life, so to think that there is something that I've hidden away that might be worse is quite unsettling. I had a doctor once who was helping me with various mysterious health problems. He told me that my body was holding on to something, and that at night before I go to sleep, to ask myself to show me in my dream. I would then get up the next day and write out whatever I remembered from my dreams, and Rob and I would analyze them. We had a backlog, so one night he suggested we work on some. We started on one that took place in a hotel, and as he asked me questions about the various parts of the dream, he said, "What happened in the room on the first floor?" I freaked out. I cried hysterically and shouted, "Nothing happened in that room. Don't you ever say that. Nothing happened. Nothing happened." And I sobbed. Yeah, that had never happened to me before. It was so shocking. I've known for a while that there was something that I've blocked. It's been 18 years since then, and I'm starting to get flashes of things, and it's unsettling. I was talking to one of my best friends about it, and she immediately told me that I need a therapist. This is not something that anyone should try to maneuver on their own. We had no insurance at the time and very little income as we were still building our company. She contacted her friend who's a therapist and asked if she could help me. The therapist had a sliding scale and my friend paid for the first month of appointments. I went and it was quite obvious that I had a lifetime of various traumas that had never been dealt with. I described being molested and raped like I was reading my grocery list. "Have you ever felt any of the feelings around these events?" the therapist asked. Hell no. Why would I do that? I've spent my life trying not to feel it. This was not going to be easy or pretty. My last attempt at therapy was spent with a therapist just getting me to do the most basic self-care. We never even touched on the trauma, so this was a first for me. Therapy is hard, really hard. It sucks to dig through painful experiences. I had done so much work over the years and felt like I was starting over. I felt so hopeless at first. I felt like I would never be free and my abusers were off living their lives and I was left to repair the damage they caused. When do I get to live? Will I ever be whole? It took me several months before I could see progress. The work I had done on my own was important and it did matter and it did help. I just needed an objective outsider who is trained in dealing with developmental trauma and complex PTSD to help me process further. I could only go so far with a book on my own. The books are still valuable and I still use them, but sometimes bravery is knowing when you can't do it alone.
Episodes of Broken to Brave are released every Tuesday and Thursday. Thank you so much for listening and for joining me on this journey of healing and growth. If you want to go deeper into this story and hear it from a spouse's perspective, my husband and I have a Patreon-only show where we have an extended, behind-the-scenes discussion of every episode, which also posts twice a week. Here's a sample of our latest Patreon-only companion podcast. So here's the deal with the therapy, okay? So I started therapy. The reason that I went in there thinking I've got two things to work on was because I was working on all the other stuff on my own. And I felt like if I could save us money, if I could just keep doing what I'm doing, I'm healing. I'm obviously getting better, right?
Right.
On my own. Like I'm getting better somewhat. Then I got into therapy and went, oh my God. And I relapsed so bad. I about went back to bed.
Right.
Because what it showed me was I have achieved nothing in my work, in my healing. I fell apart. And what I was reminded of in the wee book, I went back to it after I fell apart starting therapy. Starting therapy at any time is hard. You're rehashing things. You're digging up stuff that maybe you felt you had resolved and you hadn't really been thinking about. It causes a ripple effect that throughout your day, throughout the week, until you go back there the next time, it brings up all kinds of stuff and it makes you feel really bad in the beginning.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So I took that as I have not progressed.
Which wasn't
I'm back
true, but
at
you
the
took
beginning.
it that way. Yes.
So in the wee book, it says, you'll be all right. It's not a straight line. It's a revisiting, not a regression. You're not going backwards. Sometimes you have to experience it many times before healing comes. Okay? That turned it around for me.
Interesting.
Because that made me feel like I wasn't alone, like it wasn't just my incompetence, that it's not a straight line, that you have to keep touching. It's like a bruise when it's healing and you keep touching it to see, does it still hurt? Is it still here? I can't see it. The discoloration is gone. Let me just touch that for a second. And all of a sudden you go, yeah, it's a little tender.
Yeah, right.
And
still
then
hurts.
Sometimes it might be flared up. Sometimes it might be re-injured. Sometimes you might bump it and you go, God, now I'm starting over again. It's as if I never healed from it before, but it's not. It's a new injury on top of it.
Right.
Okay. So I had to keep reminding myself, it's not a straight line. It's a revisiting. I'm not regressing.
Right.
I'm just touching the bruise for a second, to see what parts of it still need to be healed. Is it strong enough that it might need an ointment on it? Or is it enough that I just need to kind of be gentle with it for a couple of days? Or, that's what trauma is. That's what healing from trauma is it's being gentle with yourself. It's being, it is saying this, I'm getting triggered today. This feels different. Is it a new trigger? Is it a different part of it? Is it a new feeling? I may have dealt with all the big feelings around. I might have dealt with the anger and the shame and the sadness and the grief, but maybe I didn't deal with one part.
Right.
Or let's say I didn't deal with
There's
the
still
anger.
elements
Maybe
that
I
have
dealt
to be
with
dealt with.
this, but guess what? There's this residual anger there.
Right.
Okay. So is it a regression? Does it mean that none of the other stuff you did worked? No, it just means there's a piece of the puzzle that didn't get healed.
Right.
Really learning how to notice and name it and feel and release.
To hear the rest of this episode and get other exclusives, become a patron to Broken to Brave at patreon.com. You can also follow my blog at brokentobrave.com for even more insights and engaging content. Links are in the show notes. Broken to Brave is a production of Southgate Media Group, hosted and written by me, Martha Southgate. Thank you so much for listening. Now go do something brave.